So this leads to the discussion of what happens when it is impossible to perform a sufficiently accurate dose reconstruction. And that happens pretty regularly. The ability and the focus on safety and the existence of sufficiently accurate dosimeter badges. So the technology, the focus on safety, these issues lead to the fact or point to the fact that early on there was not a significant focus on safety. The focus was on manufacturing nuclear weapons, either in the run-up to Hiroshima and Nagasaki during the Manhattan Project, and subsequently in the Cold War. More modern times have brought on more sophisticated technology and a greater focus on safety. There are many facilities where there was really no effort to measure dose. And at those facilities, it's very difficult to properly estimate the dose. And so there is a process called the Special Exposure Cohort petition process. Special Exposure Cohort. It's a big word for group of employees who work during a specific time period and for whom it is not possible, or it has been deemed that it is not possible, to perform a sufficiently accurate dose reconstruction. At those facilities, the only propositions that need to be proved are that the worker worked at the facility for 250 days at that facility or another special exposure cohort facility, and that the worker has one of 22 cancers. Now, there's a lengthy list of the 22 cancers that I will go through, and I will talk a little later about the designated cancers. But one shorthand way to think about the 22 designated cancers is they're the typical cancers that you run into that are not prostate cancer and are not skin cancer. Prostate cancer and skin cancer are so prevalent, even in the absence of radiation, that the determination was made that we are not going to pay for every single skin cancer and every single prostate cancer. So those cancers need to go through, and there are others, but those cancers need to go through the dose reconstruction process, even at a special exposure cohort facility. Also, any worker who cannot prove 250 days during the special exposure cohort period will also go through the dose reconstruction process. The problem is that where NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, the entity that is charged with performing the dose reconstruction, where they have made a determination that they can't perform a sufficiently accurate dose reconstruction, they only perform a partial dose reconstruction, and for those types of dose, for those aspects of the dose reconstruction that they can't prepare a sufficiently accurate estimate, for which they can't prepare a sufficiently accurate estimate, the estimate is 0. And this is a significant problem, obviously a weakness within the program. These claims tend to fall through the cracks. That doesn't mean that they aren't often paid, but the estimate of 0, when we know, based on the special exposure cohort petition, one of the requirements is that there be significant dose or exposure during the time period of the special exposure cohort, we know that there's significant exposure, and yet there is no a zero dose incorporated into the dose reconstruction, the partial dose reconstruction for prostate, skin cancers, as well as the dose reconstruction prepared for those workers who had less than 250 days. So those are the situations where a partial dose reconstruction is prepared. If workers are able to show that they have one of the 22 cancers, that they work for 250 days during the special exposure cohort time period, then those claims should not go to NIOSH. Those claims should be compensated based on those two factors alone. The dose reconstruction process gives rise to compensation where 50%, where the probability of causation is 50% or greater. And if the worker qualifies for compensation under the special exposure cohort, there is no need for a dose reconstruction. So we run into the circumstance from time to time where a special exposure cohort petition, a special exposure cohort claim, a claim that qualifies for inclusion in the special exposure cohort, is sent to NIOSH for a dose reconstruction in spite of the fact that it qualifies for inclusion in the special exposure cohort. If that happens, it's necessary to contact NIOSH, to contact the Department of Labor, and retrieve that claim from NIOSH, because that can lead to a 6-month or even a year delay in the payment of the claim. And this happens more often than it should. So with that, I'll talk a little bit about the 22 designated cancers.